EA just got taken private in a massive $55 billion deal. This is the largest leverage buyout ever, and it's a game changer. Without Wall Street's pressure every quarter, they might finally breathe. Imagine the potential for creativity and innovation in their games. Let's hope this means we'll see some truly great titles again. Fingers crossed for a new era of gaming from EA.
We got Electronic Arts being taken in an LBO, and I've got a soft spot in my heart for this, and I know you do too.
Yeah, absolutely. So Electronic Arts, EA's ticker, they are being taken private in the largest leverage buyout of all time. One thing I think is really interesting, back when you and I were in college, 1989, I think, we had the takeover of RJR Nabisco. Believe it or not, it's still on the list. DK intern Cash and Crow put together the exhibit this week, and I think we're looking at RJR Nabisco in fourth place on the all-time list, despite the fact that that transaction is what at this point, more than 35 years old. It's incredible. Anyway, the companies and people acquiring Electronic Arts include Saudi Arabia's public investment fund, Silver Lake, and Jared Kushner from the White House, or the president's family, rather. They've partnered to do a $55 billion acquisition of Electronic Arts. It's one of Silicon Valley's gaming giants. They are known for sports games like Madden and FC. That's a soccer game. And Battlefield. The company has struggled a bit in recent years. Some of their recent efforts have not been well received. The thing that I'm hoping to see here is the fact that the video game business has become more challenging. New games can cost hundreds of millions of dollars to develop. Not all games are going to recover those costs. It's very much a winner takes all kind of business right now. As a result of that, because you have such high development costs, but not necessarily an audience for it, it incentivizes the studios to play things safe and keep making updates to popular IP. So instead of getting something new, you'll get the 17th edition of the Battlefield games. Madden's a little bit different, that because you have different players and stats every year, I get why they do an update of that every year. The one thing I'm really hoping to see is the public companies have been using these unpopular microtransactions to make their quarterly earnings estimates. So the question is, if you have a leverage buyout and you don't have to report quarterly earnings, can these companies be a little more gamer friendly, not focus so much on the microtransactions, besides the fact that gamers hate them? You also have the issue of these loot boxes, which are basically, it's legalized gambling for 12-year-olds. And it's gotten young kids, A, into trouble, and B, kind of hooked on gambling. So I'm really hoping to see a whole lot less of that in the future. Howard, I know you've got thoughts on EA in particular. What are you thinking?
Well, I remember, I believe, I want to say it was back, was it 1995 or was it earlier, where we started with Bullfrog's edition through EA of Dungeon Keeper. And who didn't love this game? It was actually one of the most popular games created in that era. That and Diablo were, I think, the two top games for a while. And who doesn't love a good forces of evil fighting the forces of good? So, especially when you represent evil. So I think that if they're going to do reboots and they're going to be doing extra editions, yes, there's an awful lot of really good gaming that is available, but this generation really hasn't seen because of game consoles and various other aspects and how it's grown. And to have reboots of some of these games might actually do very, very well.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. So the games Howard's talking about were developed by Bullfrog. Bullfrog was bought by EA a couple of decades ago. And he's right. The original Dungeon Keeper and then the sequel, Dungeon Keeper 2, were hugely popular games. They were going to do a third edition. I'm kind of surprised that that particular series died out so quickly. It seemed like the kind of thing where they might be making, Dungeon Keeper 10 right now, but it never really caught on. And the God games or the real-time strategy games kind of fell by the wayside. I'm not really sure why.
I'd like the easy answer is, wow, they took up so much time to play. But if you take a look at what it takes to play some of the, games that people team up on, I think that it really comes out to, okay, what's keeping their interest? And if it's marketing, EA is a phenomenal marketing company. They always have been. I think grabbing interest in nostalgia. And I just had a conversation not too long ago with somebody who specializes in this sector. And he said, look, people look for what was important to them as they were growing up. And it's not that everybody wants to, from our generation, play Pong. It's that there are other games that are much more sophisticated, ones we're talking about through EA, that I think if they were given a second chance to, you'd have a whole other generation going into video games and enjoying them again.
So it's really interesting that you say nobody wants to play Pong because Atari, within the last few years, came out with a series. What I forget what they call them, but a series they look like the Atari 2600,
Mhm.
but they've got a whole bunch, like maybe 50, 60, 80 of the Atari cartridges loaded onto it.
Right.
You could play, and those things sold. And if you take a look, I actually follow Atari on Twitter or X. I'm very proud of the fact they responded to one of my posts a year ago. But they're putting out new joysticks in all different colors, and they're still making hardware for people our age who have nostalgia for those great 2600 games.
People don't want the most recent version of Mario this or Mario that, but Super Mario Brothers was incredible for Nintendo. You go back to what was important to you during your time and what sparks an interest. It's the rosebud effect. You know, you
Yeah.
don't want to get to the point where you can't enjoy what you came up on. So there are great platforms available, and EA, I think, could make a pretty big move in getting a different generation involved in the video games if they can do this properly.
All right. So, Howard, credit to you, one, for making the first Citizen Kane reference ever on this channel, and two, for pointing out the fact that EA has an incredible IP library that they haven't been mining. And it probably wouldn't cost them a lot to do remasters and re releases of some of the old games that they love. You don't necessarily have to spend $100 million on the next Battlefield. You could just mine your existing IP. It'd be interesting to see if they do that.
Again, accessibility, and also look, the computers are getting much, much faster. So all of the older software that we had doesn't keep up. It doesn't run properly with the new systems. So they have to reissue something that is going to be more compatible to the speeds that we've got. But if they do that and things run properly and there's no glitching, then I think that I mean, again, it could be very, very successful for them. It'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, and you know what? There are good emulators. MAME is a great emulator for arcade games. Stella for all the Atari games, and they run fine on the latest computers. So it is possible.